Hello everybody and welcome back. So, it has been such a long time since I've actually made an update for this project. This is the RTAG Rise game development series. So, what is there to present? Well, I don't have anything to showcase in terms of gameplay. I mean, I'm basically just going around Game Maker Studio 2 and trying to figure out what has changed when I've imported my 1.4 project into 2, because the auto tiler is definitely a huge help in the level design. I mean, I'm designing levels in Photoshop. I just basically set up a grid, and I'm just drawing in all my levels with, I've got the player reference right there, that little blob right there. And I'm transferring this onto, the actual level designer inside of the game. I actually find this to be a much better representation of what the level could look like. Designing the level right away in Game Maker Studio is definitely not a good way to have a well-balanced level, so to speak. So, in terms of what the game is, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm gonna post a trailer down in the description for a link. I can't play it here because it's gonna be choppy as all hell. Essentially, RTAG Rise is a 4-player co-op game that you can either play locally or you can play over the internet. Now, the internet part, it was a debatable subject for a very long time, which is why the title of this update episode is the online co-op. Essentially, networking for this type of game is somewhat of a complex task. Logically it's an easy thing to understand, but there's a whole lot of back and forth communication that you got to figure out in this type of project. For example, there's 2 ways that you can go about making a multiplayer game, and GameMaker supports both of those ways. You can either have a TCP or a UDP connection. So a UDP connection is sort of like a cloud connection where all the users are connected to each other and they all send information to each other. They just broadcast the information, and whatever picks up the information will be able to use it. In which case, all the users have to kind of triangulate where everything is and figure stuff out. Or there's the TCP connection, which is the type of a game where you have one single server. There we go. One single server, and then you have all the different clients connecting to the server. And what happens is, all the clients, for example, they send all their, every single client sends player position to the server. The server displays it. The server will be a player as well. It's just this is the player that's hosting the game. So all the positions of all the different players will get into the server. The server will display them to the player who's playing on the server machine. Then the server has to send the same information back to all of the clients so that all of the clients could see all other players, right? That alone is fairly easy to understand, and I've done that. In fact, on Twitter, I have posted, on Twitter, I have posted a couple of GIFs actually demonstrating the networking functionality of RTAG Rise, or when I started playing around with this idea. And that's when, after this is when it gets complicated, because in RTAG Rise we have a lot of timed events. We have a lot of projectiles flying. We have a lot of like turrets firing. We have a lot of just things spawning everywhere. And the problem is that the server will have to be the one that spawns everything, and the client, the server will have to send all that information to the client. So now you have to, if one player walks up to a button and presses that button press will have to be sent to the server. The server will trigger the button, and whatever the button does, then it also has to send back the trigger to all of the other clients in order for them to see that this player has pressed the button. And this is where the shitstorm comes in, because I have to figure out a way to do that I have to figure out a way to program it in such a way that the button can be pressed whether you're playing online co-op or whether you're playing local co-op, right? So there's two pieces of code that needed to be present for every damn thing that needs to happen, everything that's a dynamic item. So it's a pretty hefty process that I have to figure out. Now, logically, it's not a bad, it's not too bad of a concept. It's just a lot of code and a lot of data juggling that you have to figure out with the network type of game, which is why I have had to majorly sodomize my computer case in order to basically set up this work area, which I'm going to show you in a second, set up this entire work area for networking development. So here I have my little sodomized webcam. Everything is sodomized here, by the way, yeah. If you haven't seen my little channel on called Nomad Tech Journal, essentially I took apart this C270 webcam and I CNC'd out a custom plate that allows me to mount a stepper motor. So now I can basically do this with a little XY joystick, and it's just running a little Arduino microcontroller that's actually controlling the entire thing. Anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and switch to this. Here we go. Okay, so focus. Here we go. So you see that case behind me? That is, wow, look at that dust over there. Holy shit. Anyways, that case is almost twice the size of my motherboard, right? So all that space was taken by pretty much air. And anytime, the thing is, I have all these controllers that I need, because this RTX Rise supports controllers. It's fully controller supported game. So I had to constantly break my neck and get behind the computer case in order to get access to all these USBs. So I decided, you know what, frig it. I'm gonna take out all the guts from the computer case over there, and I mounted it onto my sound equipment rack right by my side. Everything's right in front of me. That's the back side of it, and these are all the front panel connectors, all the USB front panel connectors. In fact, I have accidentally discovered that I had an unused USB panel, which I've actually used up for that little card. There you go, little card slot over there. So anyways, useful stuff. So I've set up this so that I could connect all my controllers. I'm gonna have to buy at least 4 more controllers. I mean, these PlayStation controllers are fairly cheap. They're about 20 bucks, and I'm just running Motion Joy because I know people will do that. So I'm just running Motion Joy in order to test with these controllers. I got a Xbox One, rip-off controller, and from the same company, Xbox 360 controller. So with that being said, that computer up there, this is essentially our server computer that Tim and I have purchased for about 120 bucks. Yeah, we'll put 60 bucks each. This server computer was meant to run our online games. We have our Minecraft server on this computer. So whenever we want to play that, we just launch it here, and then our actual core computers or gaming computers would not be hogged by the performance. So that is now above there, right above my the two of my main screens. So this is running GameMaker Studio 2. Speaking of which, I have actually purchased GameMaker Studio 2, so that's absolutely fantastic. I can actually get some work done with the new auto tiler and the new features and the audio mixer and all that stuff. Anyway, so now I basically have my environment molded to network game development. Basically everything here is right at at my arm's reach. And yeah, this is basically the shenanigans that I had to go through to start network developing, because my computer, that computer, is running. It's a pretty outdated machine, actually. Well, somewhat. I mean, it can still. Here's the thing: it can still run Payday 2, which, in my opinion, is a good-looking game, a really good-looking game. Which means that if I can run Payday 2, that means I can develop games that look as good as Payday 2. So I don't need to upgrade to a more powerful machine. So I'm running a an Intel Core 2 Quad Q8300, which I can pick up for about $25 off of eBay, which is good because I need to build at least 2 more of these desks. Here's the thing, this right now is just a clusterfuck of all the different things that I do, right? There's programming, there's microcontroller development, there's music production. The thing is, I really need to separate all of those tasks. So what my plan is, this rig, you know, the Q8300, 2.5 gigahertz processor, the GTX 750, and there's like 8 gigs of RAM with like a $50 motherboard. I want to build 2 more of these rigs in order to move them upstairs, put both rigs on the single table, because Tim and I, what we do is we select like a weekend, and we would get together for like an entire day, and we'll just make levels for Artag Rise. And this is why we're thinking this is like an infinitely expandable game, so to speak. You know, any game is infinitely expandable technically. So what I need to do is I need to separate this, because this entire desk is a clusterfuck right now. It's somewhat uncomfortable to work with, but unfortunately I have a graphics table, I have 2 keyboards, 2 mice, you know, the actual MIDI controller for music writing. So I can't really work out a comfortable way of doing this. So this is why we're putting up Artag Rise's early access. We're not working on the budget here. So my first order of business is, after we release early access, is put together 2 more rigs just like this one to develop, to move them upstairs on a single desk so that we could develop levels for Artag Rise. And this place, I have a desk that I am going to put together specifically for I don't think I have it here. Damn it. Oh, no, there you go. This is basically a desk for music production. I need this entire area to be cleared only for music production. So, with that being said, the rack mount computer is actually going to go right over here, right in one of these slots. My audio interface, all this equipment is going to go into this rack. The keyboard is going to go here, and the MIDI keyboard is in the piano, and the keyboard and the mouse are going to go over here. So that will allow me to concentrate only on the music down here in this particular room, and in my room we're going to have game development and whatnot, 2 graphics tablets, 2 keyboards, blah blah blah, spending money I don't have, so to speak. So yeah, this is basically what I'm doing right now. So in terms of Artag Rise, we have a demo, we have early access game, and all it is right now for me to finish a couple of my own demo levels and to finish up with the multiplayer, and we can actually release the demo for people to play, and then we will be able to release the early access. Now, the demo is not a chunk of levels from the main game. The demo is a demo. It's a little tiny trial course of its own. And then the early access will have the early access games as well as the demo all together. So that will allow me to actually, allow me to have the game out there, have the feedback from people, and actually develop the main campaign for the game. So yeah, lots of excitement. So that is pretty much it. Sorry, I couldn't really show anything concrete because I've actually just had to scrap the controller, the method of I'm using the controllers in the game, because the current method is only local co-op oriented, so I can't really use it. The thing is, we started this project only thinking in terms of local co-op, local games. So when I decided that I'm gonna do online co-op, at least half even over half of the code that I had for controlling players and spawning players is not going to be valid anymore. I'm going to have to rethink the way the code works, which is why you have to figure out, or you have to decide whether you want to have a local online game or a local game before you start programming the actual, controls or the actual, core mechanic of the game. Very important stuff, because otherwise you're just going to be stumbling all over your code and figuring out how you can adapt what you already have into the new method, which is a completely new, different concept. So think of that first. Anyways, that is pretty much it in terms of the update, and I will see you guys in the next video. Keep an eye out for updates.